What does your body feel like in zero gravity?
What inspires you to become an astronaut?
What exercise do you do, and do you sweat in space?
Would a yo-yo work in microgravity?
So it works.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
International Space Station, I'm ready for the event.
Microsoft Youth Spark, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Microsoft Youth Spark Live. How do you hear me?
Microsoft Youth Spark, welcome aboard the International Space Station. I hear you loud and clear.
This is Bryce from the Richmond Boys and Girls Club. What are some of the pros and cons of being an astronaut?
Good to have you here. Yeah, some of the pros, I get to work with great people. The work is really interesting. And when you're in space, coming to the office is a pretty magnificent place to work. For cons, I'm going to be up here for 200 days. There's a lot of training and travel, so being away from home, away from family and friends is probably one of the more challenging aspects.
Hi, this is Tammy from Microsoft, and my question comes from the Stonebriar Center Microsoft store in Frisco, Texas. How old were you when you first became interested in STEM, and what caused you to have this interest?
I probably became interested when I was in elementary school, watching the space program, watching an ocean explorer by the name of Jacques Cousteau, and so I always kind of had that interest as a kid. Funny enough, I didn't really start pursuing it seriously until about my second or third year at university, and that's when I decided I was going to take that career direction. So I think it's great to have broad interests and figure out what you want to do. You don't have to know right away, but it certainly is an exciting place to work.
This is Naisha from the Moorfield Boys and Girls Club. What difficulties have you encountered when conducting experiments in space as compared to on Earth?
Two things that I can think of, and it's a great question. One of which, on Earth, if you're doing some experiments and you sit something down, it's going to be there when you go back to grab it. Here, if you sit something down and you're not very deliberate, it will float away. The other really challenging thing that even the scientists who are working or sending experiments up here deal with on a regular basis is water. Water just behaves very, very strangely in space because of the kind of molecule it is. And it forms bubbles and sticks to itself. And it's just a very interesting thing to have to deal with on a regular basis.
This is Courtney from the Harvard Boys and Girls Club. What obstacles have you encountered while being in space?
Yeah, obstacles, I think you mean challenges in the work. And sometimes you know, you've got a lot of people on the ground who are really counting on you or being asked to do an awful lot, and you don't have time to train to be perfect at everything. And so there's a lot of times you just got to give your best. You know, you make a mistake, and you confess your mistake, ask for forgiveness, and then you got to put it behind you because there's another scientist with another experiment or another piece of hardware that you need to work on, and you got to give it your full attention. So overcoming mistakes is probably one of the biggest challenges for people up here.
This is Michael from the Allen Parkway Boys and Girl Club, and I have a question for you. How does gravity affect what you do on the space station?
So how it affects what we do up here, that's one of the unique things. Because we are in orbit or free fall around the Earth, we're in simulated zero gravity. We call it microgravity, but things will float. And that is when we're doing science experiments, that's the variable we're able to offer to scientists is how do cells grow when the absence of gravity? How do crystals form in the absence of gravity? How do fluids and gases behave in the absence of gravity? So that's one of the really unique things that this lab is able to offer to scientists around the world.
Hi, this is Amanda from Microsoft, and I have a question on behalf of the Baybrook Mall Microsoft Store. What piece of technology do you utilize daily that you could not live in space without?
All of that revolves around just the day-to-day stuff that you need at home. I just replaced a filter on the portable water dispenser. Our water here is just about all reprocessed. So any water-based liquid, we try to reuse it and reprocess it. So without that capability, it would be very difficult for us to live here on the International Space Station. Also breathing, we produce a lot of carbon dioxide, and we have devices here that will remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, making it possible for us to breathe. So just the day-to-day things you take for granted, the hardware that we have built and designed to keep us alive, we rely on that every single day, and it's amazing, amazing hardware.
Hi, this is Jeremiah from the Boys and Girls Club. What is it like aboard the space station?
There's 6 of us up here. A lot of people think you would be really crowded, but we are living on a vehicle about the size of a jumbo jet. We work, our days are scheduled about 12 hours from about 7:30 in the morning to 7:30 at night. In that time, we have time for lunch. We have exercise time scheduled, events like this. And our week is pretty much controlled by the ground. They put together a plan of what their priorities are, and our job is to execute it. On the weekends, we have time off. In the evenings, we have time off. And we do things like you do on Earth. We watch movies, we'll watch TV, we read, and most importantly, probably we spend a little bit of time looking out the window.
My name is Aaliyah, and I'm from the Royal Boys and Girls Club. Are you able to breathe normally, or is there oxygen on the station? And if so, where does the oxygen come from?
Yeah, we're able to breathe very normally here on the ISS. Our atmosphere is very similar to what you breathe on Earth. The carbon dioxide is actually a bit higher than you breathe on Earth, but the oxygen content's around the same. We're able to actually produce some oxygen, but the rest of it is kind of shipped up from the ground. So it's a precious resource up here, and that's one of the things we're going to have to figure out is how to, as we go forward and spend more and more time in space further and further away from Earth, how are we going to provide oxygen, water, and all the other necessities of life?
This is Nicholas from the Galveston Boys and Girls Club. What type of music do you listen to on the space?
The same type of music I listen to at home, which gives my buddy Drew plenty to complain about. But yeah, we actually fly pretty much our whole music library with us and have it available to listen to whenever we want. We like to listen to it when we work and when we're relaxing.
Hello, I'm Paris with a question from Baybrook Mall Microsoft Store in Friendswood, Texas. And their question is, where do you sleep and how do you sleep on the space station?
All of us, this goes back to the earlier question, what's life like up here? We all have a small cabin that's about the size of a really large refrigerator. And in that cabin, we have a laptop. We have what our personal effects, at least some of them. And then on the wall of the cabin, we have a sleeping bag. And it's actually bungeed to the wall. So when it's time to go to bed, it's kind of like sleeping on the inside of a refrigerator up against the wall inside of a sleeping bag. You don't need a pillow because your head kind of floats off the surface. And we sleep pretty well. I sleep probably about as well here as I do on Earth.
I'm Ethan from Spring Branch Boys and Girls Club. And my question was, what do you eat in space?
Well, we don't have quite the selection that you do on Earth, but our food is all shipped up for us, and it comes in basically 3 types. We have pouches, which are like meals ready to eat. This is actually seafood gumbo. You just warm it up in the packet and eat it right out of the packet. We have food that's dehydrated, and you just add water from the potable water dispenser I was talking about. This is corn. These are actually potatoes, and you add hot water, warm them up, and eat them out of the bag. And then we have some off-the-shelf stuff. We actually get to pick some things that get sent up for us, and if you have some favorite food, they do their best to try to provide that for you as well.
This is Ashley from the Galveston Boys and Girls Club. My question is, where do you store your food supply?
Yeah, our food supply is it's either stored like for if stuff gets here months before us, so we have food up here for the next crew that'll arrive after us, and that's usually stored somewhere kind of out of sight in a bag. But right behind me is our galley, and in the galley they're probably shoe boxes, more about the size of about a pair of boots, and those are full of different types of food. You might have a box with meat and fish, another box with side dishes, another box with fruits and vegetables, and another ones with drink. And they last about they last for about 6 days. And about every 6 days, we have cleaned that out, and we get another packet of food that comes shrink wrapped in plastic, and put it in one of those boxes, and then we eat out of the box.
This is Jamarcus from Royal Boys and Girls Club. Do you feel heavy while wearing the spacesuit?
You don't feel heavy, although the suit weighs several hundred pounds, the spacesuit we wear out when we do spacewalks. But it is hard to work in, and it's very tiring because we're out working in a vacuum, which means there's no atmosphere or very little atmosphere around us. So the suit has to be pressurized with air, and we actually pressurize it with oxygen. Well, when you pressurize it, it's kind of inflated like a balloon, which means your arms and hands are all kind of pushed out with the atmospheric pressure in the suit. So any simple motion, you're fighting against a suit that wants to be inflated. So just something like moving your arm like this, you're working against the suit, and closing your hands, just grabbing something with your hands can be very fatiguing because you have to squeeze against the suit and then do the work that you want to do with your hands, and then let the suit relax and it'll inflate back out. So you don't feel heavy, but it can be really tiring.
This is Jim Michael from Moorfield Boys and Girls Club. What type of mental training do y'all receive before entering into space?
Yeah, mental training, we don't have kind of formal mental training, but we do focus a lot at work, like you guys should do in school, and we work a lot on relationships. We're up here for a long time, so the question you ask is a really good one, because you have to get along. There's only 6 of us up here. We're spending months together in a fairly small space, and one of the things we really focus on at work is how we work together as a team, how we communicate with each other, how we let people know how we're feeling, and not only how we're feeling, but some of the things that other folks might be doing to bother us, and vice versa. So communication, honest communication, and kind of being sensitive to other people is a really important skill to have in life and also on the space station.
Hi, I'm Ralph from the Richmond Boys and Girls Club. What is the scariest moment you have encountered while being in space?
Thankfully, we haven't had too many scary moments yet. Riding on a rocket to space is pretty thrilling. I have not come down to Earth in a capsule, which is kind of a controlled fireball under a parachute eventually. So that will be an interesting experience. But I think for us, when we go to bed at night, and if an alarm goes off in the middle of the night, and sometimes we've had some false alarms, and to wake up in the middle of the night in a dark space station, trying to figure out what's going on, and you hear an alarm sounding, there's always a little bit of an adrenaline rush until your training kicks in, and then you start working the problem and trying to figure out what happened.
Hi, this is Haley with Microsoft, and my question is on behalf of the Penn Square Mall Microsoft store in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And their question is, what was the most surprising aspect of executing a spacewalk?
I think the most surprising aspect in general for most people is how long the day is. We are only out doing a spacewalk for 6.5 hours, but that's 6.5 hours where you only have water to drink. There's no food, and you're basically the equivalent of jogging pretty hard in terms of how hard you're working for that time frame. But we're actually in the suit closer to 10.5 hours. So it's by the time you get up in the morning and wrap up at night, you might wake up around 5:30 in the morning and might not finish work that night until 9 o'clock after you've had some dinner and managed to clean up. So it makes for a really, really long, exhausting day. And I think we try to make it look easy, but the people on the ground, it's a long day for them. They have a lot to keep track of, and certainly for us up here, it's also a very long day.
This is Tyler from the Harvard Boys and Girls Club. How are rocket ships created and how long does it normally take?
That's a great question. The rockets itself the rockets themselves are usually built by like the rocket I rode up on was built in Russia by Energia, a corporation named Energia. They actually have a manifest where they lay out the plans and build the rocket. So the actual development of the rocket, depending on the type of rocket, can take years. One of the things that we're making progress in is the reusability of rocket components, because if you just let a rocket part fall into the ocean and don't recover it and use it again, you have to build a new one. But if you can go and retrieve it and refurbish it, it can make not only the turnaround time shorter, but it also can end up saving a lot of money in the long run.
This is Liliana from the Highland Parkway Boys and Girls Club. When traveling through space, where do the parts of the rocket that fall off go?
It depends where you launch from. If you launch from Florida, for instance, leave Florida and fly over the Atlantic Ocean, and the components will fall into the Atlantic Ocean. I launched on my last mission from Kazakhstan, which is in the middle of Asia. So most of those rocket components that fall back to the Earth, the different stages of the rocket, actually land out in the steppes or the high desert of Kazakhstan and beyond.
Hi, this is John from Microsoft, and I have a question from the Penn Square Mall Microsoft store in Oklahoma City. What do you expect to see changing in spaceflight in the coming years?
I expect that a lot more people are going to be doing it. I think we're right on the threshold of space opening up to more and more people, which I think is going to be an awesome thing. One of the things we want to bring back is just after our mission is just how precious our Earth is and how fragile it appears from our view up here on the International Space Station. So having more and more people with that perspective, I think, can only make humanity better equipped to deal with the very real environmental challenges we have on Earth. So more people getting the opportunity to go, and I think we're going to start going farther and farther out into the solar system. Folks like Drew and myself and Oleg and Sergey, Serena, and Alex, the folks that are up here and folks watching who'll become astronauts one day, they'll be the ones going off to the moon and hopefully onto Mars and further out into the solar system. But I expect low Earth orbit. I think we're right on the threshold of people having a really unique life experience that don't have my job. And I think that's a great thing.
This is Richard from the Spring Branch Boys and Girls Club. What type of job are available with NASA, and how do you prepare for a career at NASA?
Well, for instance, Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas is really kind of a small town. I mean, we have thousands of people working on what is kind of like a college campus. So we need all kinds of people to fill all kinds of roles at Johnson Space Center. However, for me, the most exciting jobs are the ones that involve a career in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So studying engineering, studying math, studying one of the fields of science, because that gets you directly involved in the exploration of space and maybe in aeronautics or earth science or any of those other fields, biological sciences. for the people who don't end up in the STEM fields, it's still really important that you have an understanding of science and basic scientific principles. If you work at NASA, you want to know a little bit about space exploration. You want to know a little bit about our solar system, a little bit about our home planet, because you're involved in the mission. And no matter what your job is, we're all in this together trying to execute a mission. For you guys, it's also important that you understand some of the challenges we face on Earth, and that we have educated voters who understand that, the decisions we make have a direct impact on our quality of life, and a lot of those decisions we make are based on science. And you need to at least be able to speak the language of science at some level to make informed decisions as a citizen.
Hello, this is Daniel Neumeyer from Space Center Houston. We want to thank you for all your hard work up there and appreciate everything you're doing for America and the world. And I know the students of Boys and Girls Club and Microsoft really appreciate your work with us. So we want to thank you for that. And then now I want to kick it over to Ramel Mitchell, who will close the call.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
Thank you to all participants from the Microsoft Youth Spark station. We are now resuming operational audio communications. And Ricky, we got 2 items for you.